Welcome to Teachers Teaching Teachers. It is the 13th of May, and we are gathering elementary school teachers, educators from the National Writing Project who have put together a project around children writing and librarians. And this is all Fred Mindlin's fault, because a couple of weeks ago he said, you guys are all secondary teachers, I want to talk to elementary school teachers. So I thought, okay, we'll see what we can do. And if you are muted, you want to, I know this is different than other places. I love people to talk over each other. I love those moments. So feel free to unmute and just interrupt away. Okay, so you can mute if you'd like. And if it gets crazy, we'll figure that out. Peggy George is here, yay. Hey, Peggy. Peggy may or may not say hello. And Fred is coming back again. I'm sorry, I need to do this. Sorry. So you'll notice that people have been clicking on their name and renaming themselves, putting their association, who they're associated with there. Feel free to do that if you'd like. It's a nice way to kind of remember who's what. But you know, if you'd like to. And so so here's what I'd like to do. I would like you to introduce yourself and then one or two other people, and then those one or two other people will introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Janet.
Hi, my name's Janet Ilko.
I didn't introduce you, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So let me do that. Let me do it, Janet.
Okay.
So Janet Ilko has been working in this group with Youth Voices and Alcom and that whole universe for what, few years
now. Yeah.
And she teaches at the Health Sciences
High Middle College. But I work in our independent study program.
Right. So lovely to have you here with us.
Yeah, I'm going to be here short because I have another meeting at 6:40, but I'm here to introduce an amazing educator who I happen to care a lot about, my daughter, Alicia, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Wherever you are, honey, I can't see.
Hi, I'm Alicia Rhodes. Sorry, it's a little new to me still. And I teach second grade in Santee School District in San Diego, or actually in El Cajon, sorry. And I'm in my 6th year of teaching, and I've taught first, second, and third for the last 6 years. And I'm currently getting involved more into the San Diego Area Writing Project and going through their summer institute this summer online.
Very cool. Welcome. Do you want to throw it? Do you know anybody here that you could introduce? I'm sorry.
Just my mom.
My network already broke down. Just throw it back to your mother then. Go ahead.
Back to her.
Let's see. Bud Hunt, extraordinaire writing project person who makes me laugh. Go ahead and introduce the rest of your job.
Well, now I have to tell a joke, and I don't have one that's appropriate for streaming on YouTube. No, my name is Bud Hunt. I'm a IT manager and tech services manager for a public library district in Northern Colorado, also an educational consultant, and I'm a proud member of the CUWP. That's the Colorado State University Writing Project. And I'm so glad to see so many friends. Let's see, to name one. Tonya Baker is here. Oh, okay. Well, Tonya and Christina Cantrell are here, and I don't ever get to talk to them anymore. And I think they're wonderful people, and they're writing project people, and they should talk now and introduce themselves.
Okay, Christina did this, even though on my screen I'm on top of her. I am Tonya Baker. I'm the Director of National Programs at the National Writing Project. I have been thinking about you all week, Bud Hunt, because I've been doing so much work with badges, which are rolling out in June. And I'll let Christina introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Christina in Philadelphia, work for the National Writing Project, and from Phil Whip, and I don't know, excited to be here tonight. Lots of people.
Cool. Oh, you didn't hear. So our game here is that you get to introduce one or two other people.
Christina. Oh, okay.
Who you know.
Well, let me introduce Peggy because I'm thrilled
That's
to
cool.
see Peggy's video on. And Peggy runs has run a podcast for many, many years. And she's often here at TTT, but we don't see her. So hi, Peggy. Great to see you.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for that. I had to put my Arizona cactus up there at sunset just so you know that that's where I'm from. I'm in Phoenix, and I am a retired elementary principal and university pre-service instructor, and I am loving retired life, but I want to stay current with what's going on. And I was so excited to see the topic for tonight, excited to be a part of this. I've been a longtime fan of Paul and TTT and excited to hear what you have to share.
Very cool. Peggy, you know everybody, but so anybody here you'd like to introduce? I should put
I'm
you on the
not
spot
sure
like that.
who has already been introduced. Has Fred?
No, he hasn't.
No.
Okay, how about Fred? And I'm going to let him introduce himself because I only know him online.
Fair enough.
Well, hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
It's quiet, but so maybe lean in a little bit, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'll try to lean in. I'm using a different microphone. So I'm in Watsonville, California. I've worked as an elementary educator for 30 years here in Watsonville. And for the last 5 years, I've been working full-time teaching string figures as a storytelling art. And so this whole COVID experience has been a real challenge. It's hard enough to get right there in the fingers with the kids, and on screen, it's almost impossible. So I'm still really struggling with that part of how to do what I love so much. And I don't know anybody but people who've already been introduced.
Okay, so I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Jessica Early, go ahead. Introduce yourself and then a couple of others. Yeah.
I'm Jessie Early, and I'm the director of the Central Arizona Writing Project. And I'm excited to be a part of this tonight. And Melissa Chappell is who I want to introduce, and she is part of our writing project and teaches our youth camps. And she's a second grade teacher. She was my daughter's second grade and third grade, right? Or first and second?
First and second. First and second.
Nice.
She's amazing. And Melissa and I are also in Phoenix and Tempe. So Peggy, we got to hook up.
Yeah.
It's good to meet you.
Cool. Melissa, shall I help? And go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Melissa Chappell, and Jessie said, I live here in Phoenix, and I am a second grade teacher. I've probably taught for about, I don't know, 16, 17 years. It gets a little muddled, but I've taught kindergarten and first grade, and second grade is the just right space where the kids are old enough but young enough at the same time. So I'm loving it. I've taught the writing camp. This will be my third summer teaching. Technology is really not my strong suit, but so it's also nice to hear people who are embracing it like I am, and trying new things and realizing it's not as scary. And also, as I've been doing some online teaching with the kids in my second grade, they're so encouraging. They're so helpful. They're full of great ideas, and they're really kind of applauding a lot of my efforts as I would be applauding them in the classroom. So I'm just here to listen and learn and just be a part of, and I'm excited.
Thank you. Shall I take it over, or is there somebody else? No, I don't think so.
I don't know. The
Okay,
two people
good.
I do know have been introduced. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so let me introduce Marina Lombardo, who is a third grade teacher now, I think, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I have wonderful memories of Marina when she was teaching in the Bronx with a fourth grade, I think, and they were writing letters to the next mayor here in New York City. All right, so, but introduce yourself a little more.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marina, and I'm in New York. I'm currently teaching third grade after spending a few years in fifth grade departmentalized with ELA, but kind of dabbled in like all the different grades, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, first. I just haven't made it to second yet. And I've been teaching for about 15 years as well. And I've done a lot of work with the New York City Writing Project. Most recently participating in some events they're having, getting writers together and writing just about our experiences going through the quarantine and distance learning. But yeah, I've had some really great experiences with Paul and Youth Voices and working with high school students, and it's been a lot of fun. So happy to be here again.
Cool. And Harry, let me introduce you. You are a librarian at a public school, and you invited a librarian you did a podcast with last week. You want to introduce yourself briefly, and then Donna?
Yeah, sure. I was part of the first national writing project in Mansfield University. It was called Endless Mountains Writing Project. So that was like years ago. And that was where I kind of got hooked in with all these different teachers, and living in Mexico and teaching Mexico's librarian and coming back. And so we actually have been doing, over the last 3 months, we do a podcast together, me, which is a school librarian, and Donna Carter, who is a public librarian. And, there's more and more voices that are just saying that school librarians are not being needed so much, in our state. And I think I'm one of maybe 9 librarians in the southern part of the state, and school librarians are just not, they just don't see the need, for school librarians. So she has been really good as far as coming up with some really cool ideas about bringing the public library into the school. So I'll let her, introduce herself, but she's a huge ally with like showing why there should be, school librarians in schools. So Donna, go ahead. Yep.
Hi, Donna Carter. I'm from little town of Greenwood. I'm the teen librarian, but I spent forever as a children's librarian, and I think they didn't think I was getting gray hair fast enough, so they gave me the teens, which really frightened me, and it turned out to be the best thing ever. I am really excited to be a part of this. One of the big pushes that Harry and I have been working on for the past 3 years is encouraging public and school librarians to work together. And we've done some incredible things. We're doing podcasts, and I'm just really happy to be invited to this forum. And I'm not just wanting to be here just to share one time or whatever. I really would like to stay in tune with this, because I care about, well, my background was actually in education, and I just really care about what is going on with the students, and how can we extend the curriculum that you guys are teaching? How can we extend that? How can we give you more resources? But not only that, how can we offer experiences that are outside the school walls, to make it like, oh, well, this is really part of real life, or, it's not just, this is just what I do in school, and that's it. So at any rate, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Great, thank you. I think we have Judy and Jeremy and Karen left. So Jeremy.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Hilar. I am from Michigan. I am part of the Chippewa River Writing Project out of Central Michigan University. And I teach 6th grade English and 7th grade science currently. And also just have many other hats between doing stuff for KQED and also doing community ambassadorship through NCTE as well.
Cool. Judy, welcome.
I'm Judy Buchanan, and retired from NWP, former elementary teacher, and sort of back home in Philly working with Philadelphia Writing Project, and getting to do all the things I love without the things I don't love. So, and it's great to join and be here for this conversation. I'm very excited.
And Karen, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see everybody. Hi, I'm Karen.
So
That's all I
you,
have to say.
I'm Karen, and that's all I have to say. Okay. Fair enough. So did I miss anybody? So I do definitely want to get to the resource that the NWP has put up, and Philip has similar resources around writing right now. But I want to give sort of priority to the elementary school teachers here, just to kind of ask if you could talk about how it's going for you, what's happening, what's going well for you, what kinds of issues do you want to talk about? Is that okay? I think we'll do that. And then we'll jump in with the librarians and the IT specialists in a library that Bud is, when it seems appropriate. So elementary teachers, speak up. How's it going for you? What do you want? What are the issues you want us to kind of think about?
Well, I can start.
Great.
I can say it's actually gone a lot better, actually, than I would have ever imagined. And even though there are things like, unstable internet that I can't control, I have 24 kids in my class, and probably had around 20 kids at each one of my class meetings. We met 3 times a week. Where I read a story, they had a sharing time. So it was just about kind of connecting with the community. I was able to learn how to share my screen and share videos. We did a virtual tour of the San Diego Zoo, and the kids just went crazy because they could see the webcams there. So there were like the hippos and the giraffes and the elephants, the penguins, like we could watch them all in real time, and had a parent follow up and say that a kid just couldn't stop watching, and like shared with the grandparents and like those kinds of things. So there could be real connected learning, even though there were times when things felt really flat. Like even reading a story, which works really well for me in the classroom, if it just sometimes would fall really flat, and then just not kind of knowing how to fill the time because you can't feel what the kids are feeling. So, and then just creating activities after the time that I was teaching with my kids that would connect with what we did. We did a lot of things with Earth Day, and doing some research on some different scientists, Rachel Carson, and those kinds of things that we really tried to highlight. So those authentic learning pieces that then could be extended outside of our classroom time were probably the most meaningful, and probably went the best for the kids in my class.
Wow, great stories.
So
I do want to identify that it's okay to talk about stuff that doesn't work here too, but thank you for those stories too. Yeah, but somebody else.
I was laughing when you said about the San Diego Zoo, because we did that with my students as well, and they were just so excited to be able to just kind of hang out, because we were supposed to go to the zoo in April, and so for them to lose that field trip was really hard.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. I was able to give them that experience, but of course you always have those technological issues. I had kids emailing me going, the link doesn't work. There's nothing there. And I'm like, well, it's a live camera. Like, just give it some time.
Right. You could not control
I can't push the animal to the camera. Like, just bear with it for a little bit. I am very envious though that you have 20 kids coming into your sessions 3 days a week. So for our learning, we took a month off, and that was really hard because we took off the 2 weeks where we were trying to figure out what this was going to look like. And then we had our spring break, another 2 weeks. And then it was, okay, well, I guess we're going to do distance learning with feedback. So eventually all my kids got iPads, and we are now starting to look into participation and that expectation without grades. But I am getting a lot of student interaction because I use Seesaw. Fortunately, in my classroom, we use that before everything happened. I've been trained in doing Seesaw. So I've been trying to train some educators right now, especially at my site, with just trying to figure out like how to still give that rigor to kids without having to be there and hovering over them. And at first I'm gonna say, like, I would say, okay, now you're gonna write your 10 minutes, like just like we did in class, and would get a two-word response for their writing. And it's starting to improve. I'm having them now do more handwriting because a lot of students did complain about the fact that now they're typing, and that wasn't a huge thing in second grade for us yet. We were kind of getting into it again because we were getting towards third grade. And so I think a lot of my students are really having to cope with the idea of, now I have all these ideas I want to write, but I don't want to do it because that's work. I don't want to type on this iPad. It's not the same as a keyboard even. So trying to get them to do that has been really difficult, but we do like a class meeting once a week. I'll do a Zoom. Last week I was lucky, it was on my birthday, so we did like a big birthday party where we found things that started with different sounds, and they were throwing bananas in the screen. It got a little chaotic, but it was fun. I'm starting to do guided reading groups with them. I meet with all of my readers on Fridays, and then I'll do 3 groups a day, and that will rotate through. And for the most part, I'm getting about 75–80% of my students participating. So that's been really helpful. I'm going to start kind of moving away from reading and doing more, trying to get some writing into them again. I'm trying to, because I was supposed to do Summer Institute and get all my demo. Of course, that kind of was taken away from me with COVID. Literally was in the middle of our big project of incorporating humanities and trying to bring writing. Now we were doing our diversity and bringing in things like Malala, and they were learning about new social activists, and we were just in the middle of it. And of course, now we're having to start over and online. So I'm really kind of curious, how do I get that strong writing again now online? Because I feel like a lot of my students have suffered in the fact that it's just too difficult.
I want to circle back to the strong writing and the rigor that you mentioned just a while ago here. To kind of unpack what that means as we go here. Marina, do you want to jump in as another elementary school teacher who's reading to her kids at least? What do you all do?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, like right away when all this started, I said to myself, how am I gonna keep them wanting to come, and try to find a way to balance like what we were used to every single day, in a place that in a space that's different, and not as warm. And I think right from the start, I kind of, even through all the panic mode and everything, I said, like, I have to make sure that I continue to maintain and sustain community practices, which was difficult at first because, many of my students were given devices from the school with cameras that were disabled. So that was tricky because, I put off having meetings with them for a little bit until everyone had that ability. We figured out what the glitch was, and once that was set, then they were coming pretty regularly. And what I wish I had thought of before this evening is to invite my school librarian, because I think that one thing that has really helped to enhance the engagement and the community has been the collaboration that I have with my school librarian, who has been like incredibly eager to try new things. And I'm like that too. And it just so happened that this happened during Poetry Month. And I just started putting poems up every day for the kids, a poem a day, and they loved it. And then like little things that they could play with, and then like word play. And they started making threads, and they started making up words, and they started pulling out sounds, and they were commenting to each other. And what was really nice is that, even though it's not like kids having a conversation face to face, they were interacting with each other digitally. And she also supported us. We've collaborated to do some work with Flipgrid, with the kids reading poems, listening to poems. And then we were actually able to do a virtual visit with a poet come in. So we had really great attendance for that. I think we're just trying to keep engagement high and continue to provide them with the most authentic experiences as possible so that they are not just producing work and handing it in, so that they understand that there's like some meaning behind what they're doing and that others will read it and see it. And that's been nice. But the challenges are like, getting them on, having them read the feedback. They're little. Like if I was still in middle school, I think written feedback might be okay. But I have to connect with them in order to help them and confer and, but they've maintained this nice community with one another, which I think is really important right now.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Great, Fred.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been really impressed with the effort that our school district made to get the technology out to kids. We had done a Chromebook one-to-one program starting from 3rd grade on up. So the entire school district from 3rd grade on had already Chromebooks in hand that the kids were taking home. And as soon as the shutdown started, which was March 12th, that was our last day on campus, they immediately were able within less than a week to get together enough Chromebooks so that every 2nd grade student also got one. And within another week, enough for every 1st grade student. And most of the kindergartners have also gotten Chromebooks to take home. However, it's been a real challenge getting them on the internet. The district had a very small number of hotspots that they were able to give out, and those ran out right away. They made deals with 2 local ISPs to pay for internet access for families who didn't have it. And the ISPs have been terrible at cooperating with that. Especially one of the charter companies that is the main internet provider in our area have just been beastly in terms of requiring all of this complicated paperwork that for immigrant, mostly Spanish-speaking families has been really daunting, and they've not budged on letting that. They've in fact done the opposite. They've anti-facilitated it.
Just very quickly, we have a provider in the Bronx that provides free internet service, except if you ever were late on your bill.
That's the same for us in San Diego too. If you were
perfect
box.
Right. Yeah. Anyway.
So, it was great to have that getting out. In terms of what the kids are actually able to do with that, that's been a very different story. I have not had regular classes of my own because I didn't really have a classroom, homeroom. I was the release teacher, so the kids would come to me from their homerooms. But a few of the teachers invited me to be part of their online classroom group. And so I've seen out of the average of 25 kids in each class, maybe 10 kids in those groups that I've been in touch with are actually participating regularly. So the equity issues in terms of access and service to kids who need some kind of special help has been really a struggle. And I know that there's been a lot of effort to try to bridge those gaps. I have one special needs student in one of my classes who's been mainstreamed but he had a one-on-one aide all the time. And he did come to one of my online sessions, and he was great. He was able to participate a little bit.
Are you doing string stories with them, or what are you doing online?
Yeah, I'm teaching string games and telling stories with them. It's that part has been a real challenge because it's very hard to help when the kids are, sort of balanced in the corner of a bed with the whole family doing all their stuff in the background, and the kid is juggling the device on their lap, and I can't really see what they're doing with the string very well. So that part has been a real challenge, but just the sense I get is that the kids you would expect to fall through the cracks are definitely falling, and the cracks are very large these days.
So maybe turn it to some librarians. If anybody, feel free to interrupt my flow here, but maybe some librarians. The libraries are closed, right? But libraries are one of the places where you catch those kids in the gap, I think.
Can I push on libraries are closed right now? Because I think it's one of the problems of the pandemic that drives me absolutely nuts. The public library that I work for was closed. The building has been closed since March 16th, 17th, whatever the Sunday of that weekend was. And I was there that weekend to close it down. But the library itself has been open before, during, and after that. And I think the language around some of these spaces is really complicated. The schools never closed either. They just disaggregated, right? Teachers have been working harder than they've ever worked. They've been sharing, they've been exploring. This notion of closed is it's the wrong paradigm. And I don't mean to pick on you, Paul, for saying it, but as we've been trying to explain to our folks that libraries are very much alive and open. Schools are very much alive and open. It's just that we're not in the same place. My church congregation is in the same boat, right? We have a building in the south end of town. We just don't go there anymore. That doesn't mean we're not doing the work. We're not doing the stuff. What it does mean for us at the public library is that every single process that we had predicated around the physical space that we had is gone. But most of our services we can deliver differently, and we've been trying to figure out how to do that. Relationally, we're not there yet, but closed is a word like contaminated that I wish that we wouldn't use when we talk about schools and kids and experiences in these wonderful learning institutions. I will step off of my soapbox for now.
I've been schooled. I got it.
I think I really appreciate that, but just because, we're in Arizona, in a state that's already reopening when we haven't even hit our peak yet. And I think a lot of that language has been really powerful in terms of, because there is so much actually happening. And just like personally, I know all of us, it's really shocking how much work there is to do, even at your dining room table. Like there's so much work happening. So anyway, I just think that's really an important voice right now in education.
Yeah, we've been really making that effort with communicating to families of like, yes, our physical space is closed, but the learning doesn't stop. That is constant, and whether it's from your couch or the kitchen table, just because our site is closed doesn't mean learning is stopped. We're still here. I'm still working, probably more than I have ever in my years, but we're here for them. And it actually has engaged a lot more of our families once we reword it of like, yes, the physical site is closed, but the learning is still happening.
It's hard and scary because it means we have to rethink all of the assumptions that we just know that on Thursday we'll be elbow partners with so-and-so, and it's not a big deal because we're right there, and it's hard and everything takes longer. But it's been interesting to rethink what we value and what we don't, and ways of connecting. Karen's been sharing in the chat postcards that she's been sending out to some of her folks that struggle with technology. And I mailed a book to one of our patrons last week, just because she and I were trying to understand how to use these services. And by the time we realized that she didn't know what an app store was, much less why she needed one to get the library book she wanted, it took me 5 minutes and a media mailer and to go down to the post office and send a book through the mail. There's no reason we couldn't have done it before. We just didn't do it before. And helping my kids send some letters this week and reminding them of the value of physical mail and how it's not broken, it's working, and we can still do that. It's a moment to rethink a lot of the ways that we have causally, casually, or not chosen to connect with each other.
I think it's important to, like in the connected learning conversations, right? We've been talking about how do you connect home, school, community, right? And now I feel like we can really think better. Like what is the implication of learning alongside your siblings? What is the implications of being home? And there's really hard stuff. Like, I mean, clearly, like even they say like women publishing is like way down all of a sudden versus, like there's real tension. I get it. But at the same time, like there are thinkers like Megan Bang who are talking about being a mother right now is actually the most important thing. And what do we learn from the tradition of learning in one's home, in one's community? And like, how do we reconnect those pieces? I just feel like there's really important stuff in there.
Yeah, for elementary, go ahead. I was just going to say for elementary teachers, we so often want to have projects that are homeschool projects. And now suddenly we have a space that we could try to rethink if it weren't so hard. All of the technology issues are real. And in Philadelphia, the big issue is access and Chromebooks. And then things I don't quite understand about how Google Education works. And this issue of Google Meetup. And so there's things I don't know because I'm not there trying it, but I know it's extraordinarily frustrating as people are working so hard. And this idea that you have to have these packets that are sort of delivered online is not what we're talking about tonight, but that's what's happening for a lot of people. And yet projects like puppet shows and interactive plays and making a project, some of the things that are in the Kid Writing and NWP Science Project, those are all things we would love, even when we were back in the old building, to have families engaged in, right? So now we have to think about how we do that in this new space.
So if you just think, you get to talk next.
I just think it's really interesting as a mom watching and as an educator and watching my kids trying to navigate, because in some ways, I mean, this is what research shows about digital natives, which our kids are. And like my kids are way ahead in a lot of ways of the teachers. And I think the teachers like Melissa, who said, like, my kids are honoring me and my learning in the way that I honor them. And that vulnerability and like shifting and sort of decentering ourselves and saying, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, can you guys help me? Is a really powerful moment too. And that's powerful whether you're online or not. And then the other thing too that I've noticed is really, and it's just to piggyback back off Judy, what isn't working well is when a teacher is taking just directly what they do in person and trying to replicate it online. And it's just, it's really painful to watch. And I'm not saying, it's very much a product of having no training for this and being like last minute, like I'm in no way dissing teachers, but I'm like, oh, this is what intellectually we've learned about digital learning. Like these are skills and it's digital literacy. And if we're trying to replicate an in-person space online, they're different spaces.
Well, I want to push back on that a little bit in the sense that part of how I got into doing what I do was out of my frustration with the digital natives framing of things, in the sense that so much of what's been pushed out digitally up to now has been trying to replace teachers by machines and have it be something where you can deliver this same instruction like a teacher would, but it's all coming from this machine and it's tracking the kids' progress and they're getting it. That whole dehumanizing part of technology. I just heard, I haven't listened to it yet, Naomi Klein has a new piece out called The Screen Revolution, about that whole tech push as let's take this opportunity of the quarantines and COVID shutdowns to completely eliminate people from education and have it be all managed and run by technology companies behind the scene. And what I came to in struggling with that was that the most important question to ask when a kid is in front of a screen is, who's telling the computer what to do? Is the kid actually able to say what they are looking for and what they need and get help from a real person? Or is the machine telling them, this is what you have to do? And some programmer maybe years ago set that all up for them. You know, it's just a different kind of learning and using computers as we do in Teachers Teaching Teachers to connect with other live people, but it's being facilitated in a digital process. That's really what I want to see kids doing as well, rather than more rote learning, but delivered via computer.
So,
and I,
go ahead. I just want to, I hear all that, but I'm also still hearing the examples that started this off with the elementary school teachers having the birthday parties and the reading books to their kids. I mean, this medium has allowed for that kind of connection too. I think we can have both those ideas in our head, right? Somehow.
Yeah, I can see though, I've been talking to some of the educators I work with at my site and also from other schools. And I mean, it all depends on how those teachers have wanted to use the technology available in their classroom prior to this. The teachers I work with, when we were in the classroom, we all had one-to-one, but for them, technology was, I'm going to put them on Dreambox, Lexia, and it would be their guide to kind of give them that one-to-one. I'm going to be doing my small group reading. I just need you to kind of do something else at this time. And so I think it's really, I feel for the teachers who were put in this situation without really understanding how to use technology to help create. I think it's a really big deficit because now they're being told you need to use this technology. The students need to create these ideas. And how do you do that without that rote memorization and posting a picture of a PDF and then having kids just post and read or respond to it? I think a lot of this is going to come down to how do we teach other teachers how to create with technology, especially if this might become, and I hate to say this, the new norm. And by the way, the idea of technology companies taking my job is very frightening. Being a teacher who's a temporary contract and with enrollment, I don't have a job next year.
Yeah.
The idea that there might be teachers with 40 kids because we're online is frightening. And it's just, I think for me, it's like, how do you use technology and how do you get it to not be just plug into a system and have it tell you, yes, no, you're correct. How do we get students to be critical thinkers?
Let's look at kid writing.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing, please. And as I was thinking that, I enabled that you can share your screen. Do you have it? Do you want to do that, Jessica, or do you want me to do it? What, we lost you.
You seem to be muted now, Jess.
What do you want? Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
You do it if you can.
Okay.
If you want to.
Share screen. 1 sec.
Which, by the way, to follow up on Fred's notion of who's doing the work in the screen, was that the question? No, who's deciding what's happening in the screen? Last week, one of the things that one of my touchstones has been when do the youth on the Zoom calls say, I want to show you what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
when do they share their screens?
Right.
I think is a really important moment. But go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sharing a resource that is not mine. It is a collaborative resource from the National Writing Project, and I worked on this with Tonya and Judy. And you guys,
so cute.
That is my daughter Luca.
Oh, really?
Oh,
That's such an adorable picture.
so cute.
She's so doesn't look like that anymore. You might see her run by at any
I
minute.
know. She's actually behind me. Right there, wave, Luca. That's her. She's 11 now.
So did you get permission to put this picture up? I just no, go ahead.
I think so. We'll see. It depends on the mood. So this is her at this age, and she was planning her birthday party, and she was actually writing, but she didn't know how to write yet, like in the putting together the letters kind of way. But she was scribbling, which is pre-writing, obviously, and early literacy. And she was writing out all the people and animals and stuffies that she wanted to have at her birthday party. And I love it because, well, one, it's my daughter, but two, it's so emblematic of what kid writing is. And Judy, why don't you talk about this front page and kind of what it has to offer, because you created it.
Sure, and quickly, there's more resources for people to dive into if you're interested, but kid writing is really what you know, basic early literacy. It's grounded in all of those 40 years of research on how children develop as writers from drawing and telling their stories, and then scribbling, and then the stages they go through. And somehow, like everything else in the world, it's gotten disconnected from both our common sense knowledge and also this idea that reading comes first, which I'm sure all of you on this call have struggled with in many conversations. And so kid writing actually was developed by two Phil Whip teacher consultants about 20 years ago, Eileen Felgus and Isabel Cardonic. And really, Eileen came to graduate school, as she tells about herself, she was a letter of the week, half-day kindergarten teacher. That's what she knew, and she did it really well. But when she came to Penn to get her master's and she learned about the research, she said, hey, I'm not doing it right. And she really went back deeply into her classroom practice and worked with other colleagues and really developed kid writing, which is really a way to take that research knowledge and say, but what does it mean for me as a practicing teacher? How do I make it explicit what writing is? And how do I help these developmental stages so that it's not just kids who already have parents who understand that, but all kids? And essentially that's what this is, with great resources and great explanations and lots of very specific moves that you can make and ways to group and learn from the kids' work. And there are videos and there's a book and there's other stuff, but I think that's the quick and dirty.
So maybe I'll just scroll down and show
Sure,
really quickly what we have. So it's basically
Jessica, I just want to make sure we get back to the question. We don't have to do it now, but that I think Alicia, thank you. You brought up earlier about wanting to get stronger writing and wanting to get more rigorous writing, I think you said. And you mentioned like you wanted them to write for 10 minutes and there was some issue of typing and there was some issue of handwriting. I was like writing down what you were saying.
Yeah.
All really interesting to me. In the context of this work that they're talking about, maybe we can look at that question again. But go ahead. Yeah.
So first, this site takes you through the main principles of kid writing, which is the drawing your story and your information, what kid writing is, and sort of the difference between that and adult writing, and how they can be connected, and sharing, and the importance of sort of the social nature of writing as a social practice. And then how do I get into each of the invitations? Oh, up here.
On the right-hand side of the screen.
And everything you're showing here is open and free to everyone to see, right?
Yeah.
Jess, I don't know what your screen looks like, but I think if you move the faces of people from the right, you'll see
You found it?
So we have a cycle, and each cycle, each week is a different invitation cycle. And so the first one is looking around the neighborhood and doing mapping. And so you'll see each cycle has an invitation, an overview, the supplies that you need. And these are not meant to do like on the screen. They're meant to take up and do, and then come back to the screen or not. And so every cycle has an exploration, a creation, and in this case, the exploration is a neighborhood walk, and then a creation of a map. And you can see there's an example of a co-created map with a parent. So this was a 3-year-old little boy who went with his mom, and she helped draw, but he pointed out these things on their walk. And then there's a writing invitation and different examples. And then we have resources to extend with reading and text, and also ways to connect and post what people do. And I'll just show one more, and then you're free to explore this site. But it's a wonderful example or model that if you don't necessarily want these, they can also serve as an invitation for forming new cycles with your own students.
The idea of a cycle is they're going through those 4 kinds of experiences each time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be explicit about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So this one is about seeds, and Judy worked on this one. Judy, do you want to go over it?
Sure, but I think almost everybody on this call has done this. It's just putting it in frame, which is, how great it is when you can sprout those lima beans or something else. And it's always a miracle that it happens every time.
That girl.
And that's something that can happen at home as well as in school. And again, how can it spark an exploration? We've got a time lapse there, which is, the seeds are much better. They didn't dry out on the windowsill like they do in real life. And, just go through and really dig deeply into this question of how do things grow. And then there is an opportunity to, in this case, actually came off of work that Jessica developed with her science work, where you could think about a seed packet, and it doesn't have to be a real seed. You could be a make-believe seed, and what would the seed packet look like, and what would grow from that particular plant?
I love this one.
So, and all of these ideas you all have these ideas and can just make more of them. We were just trying to come up with a few to kind of have a little skeleton to get it started. And again, these, I believe, are kids from Jessica's science project group.
Keep going. We have, let's, do you mind showing the others?
No, I just don't want to take up too much.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, your call. So, I'll show you the bugs.
Who cannot love bugs? This is Tanya. Bugs.
Bugs, go Tanya. I'll scroll.
There was a guy on Science Friday who said he was eating the murder hornets. So I'm like, okay.
Oh,
All right,
that
go ahead.
Bold.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Tanya, do you want to describe?
Oh, sure. Sorry. So in step 4, you explore bugs, you look for some examples. There's an opportunity to write, to draw and describe your bug, and then a couple of different opportunities to build the bug house and tell why your bug would live there, or write a 6-word memoir from the point of view of your bug. But mostly all of these explorations are about close looking and writing about what's exciting about these things you're exploring, and then getting a little help to do like the next thing you could probably do with as a writer, with a little encouragement or a little bit of instruction. And I think that one of the reasons we wanted to make this website right now is we wanted to say, yes, you have been sending your kids to school to learn, but you know how to do this. You can give your kid encouragement the same as you would in play or outside on the basketball court. you know how to sort of balance encouragement with a little bit of a nudge. You know enough about writing to be able to look at your kids' writing and say, oh, I bet I could just show you what the vowel sounds are in this word, or how to remember to pay attention to capital letters, or one little thing. But mostly that kids want to write. Kids want to write when they have something to say and someone to say it to. And so we're just encouraging parents to own their own power as teachers in this moment, and the joy of the work that you can do this and it can be fun.
Cool.
And this last cycle is a Wishes for Trees cycle. And this is modeled after work that we did with Digit. And Digit is an after school outdoor education and science learning lab that is also at the school where Melissa teaches and where my kids go to school. And one of our youth camps actually is taught by the people, one who's in this picture, Kelly. And we read this article that's this amazing piece, and I can link to it, about how in Australia, there was this project where a city had children write to trees that were in the city, in the downtown. And then the trees wrote back. And I loved this idea, and it spread like wildfire. And it was actually city officials writing back who were the trees, and they wrote back about the history of the trees and the importance of the trees. And it started this dialogue back and forth. So we did this one summer through our writing project with a youth camp, but then we've sort of extended it in different ways. And this make cycle is kind of inspired by that. And one is making wishes and hanging them. You can see here's one of the wishes, and then writing a letter to a favorite tree. And then here's some examples of letters of kid writing.
Cool.
Writing to a red oak tree and palm tree and a palo verde tree. So anyway, that's the last cycle.
Wonderful. So I just want to leave room for the librarians and the elementary school teachers to get back in here and say, what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot out there that people just don't look at because they're so pressured from their schools to make sure you have that plan in for this so we're covered and things like that. And the hard part is getting past the fast turnaround to have something so that the school keeps going till the end of the year, which is fine. But it's interesting when you have like I do an Upward Bound program, and we have a town hall meeting with like 30 kids, and they don't mind that. When we're all together, they actually keep on asking, when are we having the next one? When are we having the next one? And they like that because it's personal. They're not getting that in their daily classes, and they're literally not doing the work because they don't see any point in it at all. They're like, well, I'm not showing up. It sucks. I hate this online thing. I'm not getting any feedback from the teachers. I feel like I'm just like a number trying to get this assignment done by a date. And so they're just shutting down. So can you imagine what it's going to be like when they come back for the fall? Whether it's in class or not, So
let's think about this resource as someone stepping in between some of that.
Yeah. I mean, the resources that are here, I mean, I don't know, like I just like, at least with our school, and I don't know if it's with like this with other schools, there's a program that automatically kicks in the instruction, and it doesn't let the teachers really input anything. And it keeps going, at least for high school, you have to do that because parents are like, I want to know what my kid's grade point average is, graduation, scholarships. And so,
Harry, I hear you, but I can't end this way. I need to hear from other people.
So let me nudge on that though. One of the things I think is really important for all of us to be doing is to create infrastructure that allows kids to do that wondering and connecting, right? To go back to what Christina said earlier about connected learning, my daughter, she's 10, and I've been enjoying sort of being the family observer. My wife is teaching high school up in her office. My daughter is in her class. My other daughter is 12, and we have a new dog, and she's the primary caregiver for that. And then 10-year-old Quinn, I brought home a Chromebook from the library and gave it to her and said, let's see what we can do with this, right? And her school district has some infrastructure and some things, and that's not equitable, and that's a societal issue that we need to deal with. But what she's been doing with that is she's a socializer. So she's been scheduling meetings of kids. This morning, I had to step out and ask her to quiet down what was going on. She was teaching a cooking class to her friends. She was showing them how to make avocado toast. I don't know how to make that. It's fancy. But my point is that if we can create these moments and experiences for people and give them the tools to make the connections, to get to Harry's point, the other side of it, which is expressed in kid writing, is that I've never met somebody who isn't curious about the world. I've never met somebody who doesn't want to talk to people and share what they know. And so if we can rethink the way that we're offering library services, and library for young children, a lot of the online services are garbage because they are built on this notion that we have to show kids how to read and what to sound out and do this and that's not true. We need to show them beautiful and wonderful things and let them explore with trusted people that they care about and who cares about them. But if we can help to create these sort of experiences, then we can help to make spaces that kids want to come back to, that they're going to come back to, and that they're going to learn in. And so that's our challenge, right? Is how do we build these moments, these spaces, and remind them that there are grownups, these teachers that are here who've spent hours and hours preparing and sharing and being vulnerable in front of each other and showing them and reminding them what learning looks like. Like if we can make sure that our schools and our libraries have these spaces and moments and things, we're going to be fine. And a lot of the crap is going to drop off because a lot of the
Because the kids won't show up.
well, the kids won't show up, but also some of the expectations
Well,
drop off.
And this is where
Bud, we didn't silence Bud. His mic went quiet, by the way. But go ahead. Go ahead, Donna.
I'm just going to say this summer reading is going to be very strange for us, and it's going to have to be virtual. And so one thing, working with teens, I'm going to be using a lot of FaceTime and Zoom, that sort of thing. And from talking with Harry, you know, he was telling me how they're hating the virtual learning and things, which really surprised me, to tell you the truth. And we were talking about hoping that there would be a way that public libraries can plug in with the schools to kind of, now we've got the summer months. How can we make this more interesting to them? And just like what you were saying about your daughter, you know, teaching things online, that sort of thing. What my summer reading is going to comprise of is going to be a lot of Zoom meetings or you know, whichever format it works the best. Unfortunately, I worry about the kids that are not only because they might be financially disadvantaged, but we live in a rural area where I lived on a farm, and you know, I couldn't even get cell phone service. So I worry that I'm going to cut these kids out, but I'm going to come up with a way, you know, to have an alternative to that. But we can't do any face-to-face in the library programming until September. So it's a big challenge, but I really hope that somehow our libraries can take the antiseptic feel, I guess, out of online learning. And also, I think teachers, I don't know what you guys have to do during the summer, but you know, this might be a great time where you can, you know, you don't have lessons and things like that, where you can explore different apps and things like that. That's what I've had the luxury to do. I've been out of my building since March, and I'm not a techie person, but I've got all kinds of new apps and things like that that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And a shout out to my storyteller, because I'm a storyteller too. Yeah.
Cool. Other thoughts about what you just saw with this resource? You did say right at the end there, make cycles, the 4 make cycles.
I think
what I was gonna say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Please. I was just gonna say what I like about it is how interactive and engaging it is for kids. And like Bud had said about kids just are always loving learning. And my kids love learning in the classroom, and they loved learning online because we were actually connected as a community and talking. And anytime, like when we did the zoo and we read an Eric Carle book about my favorite animals, and I think this was the workshop that I wrote up for you, Jessica, perhaps, but it had all the links to authors and illustrators from the Eric Carle book. It had even like a link where one of the people were speaking. One of the authors was speaking about how he gets his ideas. And then it had follow up, like, tell me about your favorite animal. And then we followed up with Flipgrid, where then they shared about their favorite animal. So there were all those extensions, but then there's that personal connection. And I think that while we are not physically in the same place, we can still personalize learning for kids if we take the time. You know, I already built the relationships in our classrooms, but as new things come up and new opportunities, building the relationships and getting to know the children, and that will really drive them wanting to come back, feeling valued. That's number one. Kids want to know they matter. And when we take the time to show kids that who they are matters, what they think matters, they have a big buy-in there. And so those workshops and what Jessica shared, those things are really interactive. And kids like to do those kinds of things and extend their learning outside of a specific learning time.
All of that stuff you said about the personal connection, I am certainly not the only person saying this, but it has to be said constantly. If looping was ever a good idea, like now is when to loop. Like, hello, hello, loop, loop, loop. I mean, we have to do that. Otherwise, how are we going to build those relationships? Right. So anyway.
Yeah, I looped once. I actually looped. That's why I had Jesse's daughter twice. And that was like I had the best class ever, and then had the best class ever a second time. But it was so beautiful to just start knowing them, and then we just hit the ground running because we had those relationships. And
so we need to get some administrators and superintendents on here and let them know that too. But cool. Other quick thoughts, and then we should let you go. I see people looking around like, oh, I'll be done soon.
Sorry, that was just my husband came in the room.
No,
and
I know.
surprised me.
It was running.
I can smell dinner. I did the same thing.
Did
I'm
too.
like, oh, I
Okay, I
think dinner's
told you
done.
it's not. Okay. All right, so maybe
say
we
I'd
should
love to
stop
hear
unless somebody wants to jump
another
in.
TTT on taking what we count as kind of classroom stuff and how it can be online. Like, you know how Some Good News uses that poster that his kids made? So, like, if that counts okay in entertainment, so why can't we do some more of that in education? There's this idea that it all has to be digital seems to be part of the problem, because it's the real stuff that people are missing, and we can do more of that in these online spaces. We just have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about your kids, Alicia. I would, if their parents have smartphones, like I would be giving them pens and crayons back and having pictures uploaded instead of, trying to write for 10 minutes on the.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, I had someone who was willing to donate and let me use their credit card to mail out notebooks to all of my students. God, love the community I have around me. But with Seesaw too, it is helpful in the sense that they do have microphones, and they could take pictures and upload it that way. It was more of reminding kids that they don't have to type. Right. And that when I want that writing, it's like, okay, you can handwrite it, but then do speech to text if you want to have it typed and looking pretty. Right. But just reminding them every day, like, please just take a picture.
All right, I'm going to release everybody. Thank you so much for this conversation. We will continue.
Great. Thanks for hosting, Paul. It's nice to see you all.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Take care, y'all. Well done.
See ya. Thanks.